we literally mapped it out on a napkin and then we just started executing. We just started doing stuff,
Yeah.
which I think really sets entrepreneurs apart in this world is being able to ideate, but then execute,
Yes.
which we were both really good at.
Welcome back to the Soulful CEO Path, the podcast for purpose-driven entrepreneurs who are building wildly abundant and aligned businesses that create ripple effects of positivity in the world. I'm Kristin Constable, and today I have a really fun episode because it's the first of its kind where I not only have one amazing guest, I've got two. And today I've got Tess Collard and Alisha Adams joining me. These two are the powerhouses behind 1111 Talent, a global recruitment agency. And today's conversation, we're going to be focusing it around the co-founder relationship. And this is going to be a really juicy conversation to explore because I know a lot of women that I work with, women that are colleagues of mine, they want to do their own thing. They want to have a business that is theirs, but they don't want to do it alone. So today we're going to be diving into the co-founder dynamic and balancing the dynamics between being business partners and being friends. And I've known Tess and Alisha for years, and our paths have crossed in the corporate world. And then since then, online all of the time. And I've just really admired how they seem to navigate this dynamic so beautifully. So welcome to the show, Tess and Alisha. I'm so happy that you're here.
Thank you so much.
you.
Intro.
We're so excited to be here.
It's so good. It's so fun to be able to have these conversations with people that, you know, our lives go back many years, different things, and then to be able to come into where you're at right now and tap into what you've learned in the last like 10 plus. Well, how long has 1111 Talent been around? I know it's had a couple iterations, but you know, you two working together.
It's been 10 years.
Yeah. 10
this
years.
October, it will be our 10th year.
I thought so, because it's 10 years for me in January. And I think we started around the same time.
Yes, we did. Yeah.
Well, let's start by just talking about maybe what inspired you to start a business together and how did you know that you would make great co-founders off the bat, or were you just kind of like testing it to see where it goes?
Okay, so to start the business together, you know, we grew up alongside each other. We worked in corporate together. We were brought in to build the recruiting team at Lululemon Athletica at a time where it was going through huge growth. It was going from 2 countries to 19, 100 people at the Vancouver head office to 1,000. Alisha led the product side. I led the support function side. So we kind of worked together alongside each other in the trenches for a good 4 to 5 years. So we have always been co-workers or colleagues.
Yeah.
So we really understood, you know, how to work together. And through that, we built a friendship together. And so Alisha you had always wanted to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I did. I mean, I think that's one of the really beautiful things about us growing up together, specifically at Lululemon, was we did a lot of vision and goals, talking about our values. And that was the first time for myself and probably the first time for you, or, you know, especially in that type of setting. So we got to know each other really well. And yeah, through that work and exercise, like I was super clear on my vision for myself, being an entrepreneur, my family, I have entrepreneurs in my family. So I'd grown up in that environment and was really clear that I wanted that type of autonomy, flexibility, and control over my career. So I talked about that a lot, but that wasn't your vision when we first met.
Yeah. So I had never considered being an entrepreneur. I didn't have any models of that. It wasn't something that I thought I would continue to grow in corporate. I definitely was ambitious and wanted to be career. But when we met, I had already had kids.
Yes.
So I was looking for a way to have more freedom of my schedule and still have a big career. And I couldn't figure it out at that time because this was way before COVID. This was before remote work was a thing. And so I had started to think about this idea of if I was an entrepreneur, if I had my own business, this would allow me to create a schedule that worked for my family life and how I wanted to show up in all areas of my life and still have a big career. So we were at a conference in Boston, a recruiting conference, and I think we'd had a few glasses of wine.
Yeah.
And
how it always begins,
right? Yeah. Talking about, you know, we're listening to the speakers, talking about recruiting, and, you know, we just kind of like, I think we could do this on our own, right? Like she had an idea of a business and I was craving that freedom and autonomy. And so we literally on a napkin, like wrote out where we would start, and we created our first business, which was Talent Lab. And that was just by bringing the recruiter and HR community together. And we were hosting these conferences with the vision of one day creating a recruitment agency.
Yeah. And I think, one of the interesting things about that time in our lives was we didn't have it perfectly mapped out. Like we didn't know exactly what the end goal was going to be, when it was going to be, when we could, officially leave our jobs and all of the pieces that might stop somebody from taking that step forward. But like Tess said, we literally mapped it out on a napkin, and then we just started executing. We just started doing stuff. Which I think really sets entrepreneurs apart in this world, is being able to ideate but then execute, which we were both really good at.
And the other thing I'll add is that we kept our corporate jobs for the first 3 years of our business, and putting this together and executing and testing and failing and trying different things. We held our corporate jobs. So we did not burn all the boats. We didn't go all in. We really tested the theory and the model. Because the reality was we had, mortgages and bills to pay.
Yeah. Well, I love that that's part of your story, because I think some of the entrepreneurial propaganda is that you have to burn all the boats and you've got to go all in. And if you don't do that, then you're not committed. And it's like, there's so many ways to get to where you two are now. And I love that you've done that. And I'm curious, is like, do you think that was actually part of the success formula for you? Because there wasn't so much stress at the beginning to be like, if we don't land a client, like we're going to be, not be able to pay our bills.
For sure.
It took, it allowed us to make decisions more intentionally. It wasn't coming from a place of fear or, desperation. I think we were just so slow and methodical. And again, we didn't know exactly when we were going to be able to quit our corporate jobs. We had a savings account that every piece of work that came in, every bill or invoice that we sent out, we were saving our money. And we had a number in mind that would allow us to continue paying our salaries. So it would just we would quit our job, step into the business, and continue, making money. And so we were so slow and methodical and intentional. And to your point, yes, I mean, it allowed us to take the risk to a certain degree off, and allowed us to make better decisions, I think, ultimately.
100%. I'm just smiling because I'm thinking about when we hit that number, and we had our resignation letters already printed, and we just walked in and could make the move.
Oh, I have goosebumps from that. That's the best. So good.
I mean, hold on. Truth be told, I had a bit of a hard time with it.
Yes.
Tess had to take me to see what was it called?
A tarot card.
A tarot card.
Because it's she's like, it will be fine.
I mean, it was still scary, right?
And
it took a bit of a push, but yes, once we hit that threshold, it was like freedom was upon us.
That's the interesting thing, because I think when you talk about entrepreneurial traits, it is that ability to tolerate the uncertainty and risk, and that feeling comes up over and over and over again. And if you can tolerate that, then you should think about entrepreneurship. If that is not a good place for you to be in, it's not for you, because it's a constant.
Yes. And it doesn't mean it doesn't happen to us, because it does all the time. But it's how we navigate it. And sometimes that means you go to a psychic.
Yes. We all have our tools. Exactly. No, but it's so good, because you're right. It's like, it doesn't go away. It's not just the discomfort about starting your thing and there. It's like every next level, every investment level, every risk, every growth edge. It's like the same thing. So to your point, Tess, unless that's and I think that is something you can maybe learn a little, but I think it's quite innate. Some people are more risk averse than not. And it's not going to be fun if you are very risk averse and you can't tolerate risk. Okay. Well, take us back to your early days of figuring. So now you've left corporate, you're doing your own thing. And you're now all in on this thing. and take us back to how, and maybe you had done this a little bit before, but start to navigate some of the ways of working together and some of the like difficult conversations you had to have, figuring out roles and responsibilities, like those types of things. How did you navigate those? And any tips you have for people who are thinking about going into co-founder relationship?
We actually wrote a blog post on this years ago, and I was looking for it before we started and I couldn't find it, so I'm going to try to remember.
Yeah, freestyle.
But when we started, we sat down and we created some operating principles. We are friends. Like, we were friends first. Of course, yes, we worked together, but we are really good friends, and we wanted to protect that and preserve that. And we wanted to have a healthy, business relationship, because Alisha brings up all the time, this is a marriage. This is like a marriage, it is, we own bank accounts together, we own a business together, we own property together, we own social media accounts together. Like, it is,
it's more integrated than my own marriage. Like, I do not share a social media account with my husband.
Totally. Yeah.
So it is like the intensity is high, right? So we had set out these operating principles, is what we called them. I can't even remember them all, but the ones that stand out in my mind are, we had something called Prosecco time. When we started 10 years ago, we had Prosecco as one of our values, which we don't anymore. But for us, what it represented was this like playfulness, this lightness, this like, let's have a drink together at the end of the day. And we called it Prosecco time. So if we're going to have a glass of Prosecco together, we're not going to talk about business. We're going to talk about, how are you, what's going on, how the kids, what's happening in your life, like, what are you, I would say, who's pissing you off, like, what's going on. And that is like where we would just carve out intentional time. We don't do that anymore because it's such an ingrained thing. We have a team meeting every Monday, and Alisha and I will get on first 20 minutes earlier, and we'll just catch up on the weekend. Like, how's the weekend? What happened? And it's not even to preserve the relationship. Like, I genuinely want to know. Like, I didn't talk to you for 2 days. I might have sent you TikToks, but like, what happened? Like, what were you doing? Like, so it's now easier, but at the start we made it purposeful. Like, this is business time, this is personal time. And until it could become like a seamless thing, we carved it out.
Yeah.
Other principle of the 6 that I really remember is, we talked about, what are we going to do when things get hard? Like, what are we going to do so we don't build resentment towards each other? Because that is a real thing in a marriage. Think about a marriage, okay? And so one of the things we decided is, if something doesn't sit well with you, or if one of us says something that doesn't land right, or if you don't agree with something, you have 24 hours to come back to the person and tell them. Like, we literally, and we operated like that. And here's the blessing that we had when we worked at Lululemon. That was actually part of the culture there, right? Like, you have to clear things. And it creates like this tolerance for difficult conversations, hard conversations, but it allows you to work quickly and get things done and stay in alignment. So we would practice that rule.
Yeah.
And that was hard sometimes. Like, sometimes Alisha would be like, I know you have something to say, you just need to say it. You've got 24 hours. Like, and I feel,
I'm on to you.
I'm here to bury it deep down inside.
Like, can't I just bring this up in a fight in 5 years, like I would do with my husband? Like,
exactly.
I like that she gave you 24 hours too. It's like, fine, but you need to come back.
Like, you get to know each other so well. If someone's a bit off, or if they're a bit short, or if they're a bit, and that's all real. So I think we give each other a lot of grace, and we hold each other to a really high standard. Like, hey, you got 24 hours, like, and we're both so invested in the relationship and the business that we know we have to like play ball.
Another one that really comes to mind, and I don't even know if this was like an official operating principle, but it's just something that we have both said to each other that really stands out. And again, this is going to sound really relationship-y, but it is. Again, in those tough moments, which is where you see, co-founderships fall apart, is like, instead of turning away from each other we have to turn towards each other. So that comes back to the like having the tough conversations, or even just saying like, I'm not in a good space. I don't want to talk about it, but I will when I'm ready. Like even just acknowledging that. So it just like releases a bit of the pressure on the relationship. But I think that's like, it's so special to me. Like I think about us saying that in the hard moments, like we have to work towards each other. Like we can't push each other away. We can't isolate ourselves. We can't shut down. That's been like a huge learning for me, like in our business, but also in my life, honestly.
And it's so much easier to do those things. And it's like in our most comfortable relationships, you tend to do that, right?
Yes.
And so because there's a business involved, we kind of have to be better than what we would normally be.
Better people.
And we're not always,
to be better
right?
people.
Like we have our moments, and then we clean it. We have to clean things up with each other. We have to give each other some grace and space sometimes.
Yes.
And sometimes we're operating like really well and we're just flowing, and sometimes it's harder. So, but we're both, I think, just so invested. And somebody asked me recently, like, do you guys ever get mad at each other? Like, do you ever get, and I was like, it was a woman who's married, and I said, do you ever get pissed off at your husband? And she's like, yeah. And I said, but do you still go to bed together at night and wake up in the morning and have coffee together? Like, you know, it's so much more than like you would, you know, like it's just a different level of relationship, and it takes intention and work and love and care and all that good stuff.
I think that's so important for people to hear, because I feel like that's a misconception about us, is that it's all rainbows and butterflies and, you know, we're best friends and, you know, and a lot of that is true, but that doesn't mean there's not hard times. Like, of course there is.
There actually can't be. If you can't have that closeness if you don't have the hard times. It's like, that's one of the principles of high performing teams.
People are like, well, on social, it looks so perfect, but it's like, I'm not going to go on social and be like, guys, Alicia's so mad at me today, and because I fucked up, and I like, you know, we're not
discernment. Well, I think what's great about what you're talking about is, even for people who aren't in a co-founder relationship or thinking about this, for teams and leading teams, this is still, these principles completely apply. And what I think is cool about what you're sharing is that, and probably what really helped, is you had this common language and culture that you were bringing into your organization, because whether someone's one person with a team member, like there is a culture that is created as soon as there's more than one person. You both had that coming in, that now probably your whole team gets to like witness, experience, and then get like integrated into, and it's intentional is what you're really speaking to. It doesn't just happen. It's intentional.
And for the team, if we're not in agreement on something, it's like mom and dad are always united. Like mom and dad will come back and we'll cheer the direction, but we need to offline this.
Totally. Well, thanks for being so. I know. I was good. I was wondering.
It does. It does.
But who's like good cop, bad cop? Which one of you is? It doesn't.
It totally. It just depends on the situation, I think. And I think we're also really good at like noticing when one person feels really strongly about something. Usually if a situation comes up and maybe we're a bit at odds of how to handle it or what's the best way forward, like typically I think it's very rare that we've both been like, no, this is how I want to handle it and I'm not compromising. Like usually one person feels a little bit more strongly, and then the other person kind of allows it and just steps back, because we know that it's going to be reciprocal. Like there's going to be another situation where the other, you know, that happens for the other person. So I think that's been really helpful too.
And with the good cop, bad cop, it's like we both play each role. It would be so unhealthy for us to just be like, you're always bad cop, I'm always good cop. You know, develops you in different ways, right? Like when you have to have those hard conversations or you have to really hold a line about something, we both need to be doing that.
I think that's so important for people to hear. And it kind of speaks to what I wanted to talk about next with like roles and responsibilities, because, you know, there is some value to having clear roles and responsibilities that you're accountable for. But it's also, to your point, is like, I don't know how you feel about it, but it's like one person can't just own all business development or all hard conversations. It's like you're kind of in it together. So how do you two navigate that part around what you own and then what you co-own?
Yeah, I mean, again, we were so cute at the beginning. Do you remember we did an offsite and we like looked at our strengths and we really mapped out like who was going to own what? And honestly, we've kind of stuck to that. Like that was at the very beginning. And so, yes, I mean, there's certain functions that we both own and really kind of operate autonomously. So for me, it's finance. Tess does marketing, like from a social media standpoint. She owns all of that, creates all that creative. And then, like, everything else is pretty much shared. Like, to your point, Kristin, it's like I do own business development, but that's obviously a shared function. But I'm the one who's driving it and making sure we're hitting deadlines or coming up with a strategy or just taking ownership over it, but we're both heavily involved, right? And so that goes for business development, strategy,
innovation,
people.
Yeah.
Those are all shared, but one of us has the lead on it.
Exactly. If you have the lead on it, at the end of the day, like you own the D on it, essentially. But we're always making, I might put a like brand or marketing strategy together because I'm driving it, I'm executing it, I'm bringing in the team members that are going to execute it. But I'll present it back to Alisha and she'll be like, oh, okay, but what about this or this or this? Or, we're formulating things together and then aligning and then going forward from there.
Yeah.
So there's points of collaboration and then points of ownership. So there's not double work and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, especially in a small business, right? And we're active founders. We work in the business and we both own executive recruiting. So a lot of founders in the recruiting space don't actually recruit. We're different in the sense that we drive all of the executive recruitment.
Well, I want to shift direction a little bit. So that's your kind of like dynamic inside of the business and how you kind of navigate that. I'm curious to know how you have navigated the different life stuff and seasons that come up for you. And the reason I ask is because you guys have been together for 10 years now. That's a long time. So like life looks probably very different than it did 10 years ago.
Yes.
And your visions might look different for what life looks like and what role work plays in your life. And I was actually recently coaching there are 3 co-founders, and this was a big pain point for them because one of the co-founders was in a season of his life where he's like, I don't want to be hustling and working, all these hours. And then these other guys were younger. They were in a season of life where they're like, this is the time to make money. Like, I want to go. And there was this like kind of real tension there because everyone just wants what they want. It's totally fair and valid, but how do you make that work then in the dynamic? So curious to know, like, has that come up for you two at any point and how have you navigated different life seasons and vision for your life?
Right. Oh my God. Okay. So I feel like overall, like the season of life that we're in is like we're building a business and a brand and we're working really hard. Like we're both the same age and that we're kind of steady there. We have young families, we're building. However, so we're kind of going in the same direction. We're at the same hustle mode, etc. But then life has happened differently to each of us, right? Like I had my kids much earlier. And so then I have more capacity in other things because my kids are not as demanding physically as Alicia's kids are still small and need her a lot more. I've gone through divorce. Alicia's had a maternity leave while we're in the business. And these are like huge life shifts and changes that we have had to hold space for each other, have grace for each other, and support each other. And I think that's where the friendship comes in and really saves us, or not saves us, or, powers us because we just care about each other so much and want each other to be okay. And it's not perfect because we've been in different life stages and modes, but I think we've just always tried our best.
Yeah. Yeah. And overall, our end goal, our values have remained the same. Like the target is the same. So we're just here to support and navigate each other through all the different iterations that happen on the path to that vision that we both hold. And I was just saying to Tess right before we started this, like, and in talking about our partnership, our friendship, our relationship, like because this is all I know, I actually cannot imagine doing this with someone who I didn't have this level of relationship with. Because there's
Yeah.
just so much trust and grace and understanding
Yeah.
that has allowed us to get to where we are today.
So what I'm hearing in that is like having that aligned vision, making sure that you are both always in alignment with that allows you in the short term to make little deviations if needed to manage life that comes up. But
Yes.
you're both committed to that. And I think it probably helps that you're both in the same season. It's like it
Yeah.
might require some
Yes.
short pieces, but it
Yeah.
sounds like both of you are in build mode and not
Yes.
one is like,
Big
I just
time.
want the soft life and, to like take it
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah.
Cause that could probably cause some tension.
Yeah. And I think, and, on that, we want that. And I think the last, 2 years in the business really taught us like how to prioritize our mental health, like coming out of COVID,
Yeah.
going into a, pseudo recession or,
Yeah.
somewhat where we felt a lot of strain in our business and we had to be like, close your computer and go for a mental health walk,
Yeah.
like now.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Like, and then, teach ourselves how to be personally responsible for those things as well.
Yeah.
So if someone's listening and they're like, I want to, do this thing with a co-founder, what are some pieces of advice that you would leave people with in terms of finding, vetting, and maybe even testing the relationship before diving straight into it?
I think doing an exercise around your values
Yeah.
is going to be really helpful, right? Because I think as our values, we live them out differently. They express themselves differently, but at the core, they're the same words, right?
Yeah.
So that helps. Understanding your strengths. We just happen to have complete opposite strengths. So that works really well in business.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that, we've done really well, and I'll use the example of your mat leave, but,
Yeah.
we were talking about her mat leave with her second child before she was even pregnant. It was a goal that her family had, that she had. And so that was something she talked about. And so I think people are scared to bring those things up or say those things, but it allowed us to build the business sustainably, make sure that when that moment comes, she can step out of the business. So I think don't hold those things back. You have to share them and you have to enroll your co-founder in them because I actually was there the night where you did the test. Do you know that?
Yeah. I
With Al,
remember. Yeah.
and it's like we're both so invested because we've been talking about it.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
And I think another thing that would be helpful for people starting out, and I'm thinking about the client you were just talking about, Kristin, and being in different seasons of life. And yes, it's certainly a benefit that we are, but I think the other piece to that is no matter what season of life you're in, maybe you do have two co-founders who are in different seasons, but thinking about what the end goal is with the business. Tess and I have had a lot of conversation around like how when we say we want to build this business, what does that actually mean to us? Do we want to have 50 employees? Do we want to have multiple offices? Do we want to be making X million of dollars? Or, thinking about our value system, what feels comfortable, what is right? Is that actually the vision to keep building and building and building till it's bigger and bigger and bigger? Or where is that sweet spot? Like that has been a continuous conversation and we're so aligned there as well.
Yes. Yeah.
I think that'd be hard if one of us was like,
I think it's a great point
wanted
because
to be,
it's also in the like narrative that you have to build and scale.
Yeah.
We had a time in our 10 years where we had 20 employees and we hated it.
Yeah. Yes.
This is like not fun. This is not for us. And, we kind of scaled back until we found our sweet spot in what that looks like for us. And we don't want to have branches and offices and, like we really kind of like where we're at. And we have a number in mind of like where we want revenue to go to.
Yeah.
And we're completely aligned on that.
That's so good. I love that. The end game is like, what is the end game here for you? And how is it going to feel how do you want to feel getting there? And I think if you can be aligned on those two pieces, then that makes a lot of sense. Well, you two talked a little bit about Prosecco time. So, but you're not doing that anymore. What the last question I'll ask you to is what are you currently doing in terms of like rhythms, rituals, routines, that either personally as CEOs or together as co-founders to help you thrive?
Really good question. Because this is a huge lesson and learning for us. This year was the first year I started scheduling my workouts. Like they go in my calendar, my work calendar.
12 o'clock today, I heard.
Exactly. You can't touch that time. And my fiance and I go together and we do that twice a week. And he actually can't today. So Alicia's taking his spot. So whenever he can't, she comes. And so Alisha, with her workouts, is a very disciplined and like consistent person. So I think that's something that like has become a non-negotiable for us. And we both have turned 40. So now the whole thing is weight training. So that's like where we're focused.
I feel you, ladies. I feel ya.
Alicia's like very up to date on like what we need to be doing for our longevity and our health and wellness. So we can see the fruits of our labor.
That's right.
Yeah.
So we have quality of life. That's what I keep saying to her because she doesn't want to be 100 like I do.
Yeah.
But be thriving in our 80s.
Yeah. Kate, so that's like I live life to the fullest. Like I'm not trying to extend my life here. Like I've had a good run, you know?
I hear you. Yeah. But in our 80s, we want to be traveling, eating well, drinking well, walking. Yeah. I hear you on that. Okay. Exactly. So taking care of your body.
Yeah. Bodies is like a non-negotiable. And now it's scheduled. And that, you know, we've been in business 10 years. This is the first year it's in the calendar. And that's been a game changer because nothing has suffered at work. Like maybe the opposite. We both do walks. Sometimes we'll do a walking meeting or we're just like we'll call each other and one of us is out for a walk and like we just try to do a 30-minute walk a few times a week.
Yeah. That's been game changing for me. I feel like if I had 30 minutes, I would prioritize doing weight training or something more extreme. But the walking mentally has been
so good,
so helpful for me and totally can change the day around. If I'm in the business having a tough day, it is like taking a magic pill or something. The way it like I don't know what's happening in my body, the endorphins or whatever's dopamine. But being in nature, being outside, moving my body a little bit, not being too extreme about it has been really, really helpful.
And really giving yourself that permission, right? It's like, to your point, Tess, is like, we often think, oh, I can't, you know, it's going to impact the business. It's like the hour or whatever you do is not. And then it really does, you know, just signal your values to everybody else too, that works with you is like, this
the
is
amount of ideas that come to me when I'm on a walk. I come back and I'm just like, boom, you know, it's such a great practice. And the last thing I'll mention is we both read a lot and practice meditation and not meditation in the sense of like, we're setting up this whole scene and sitting on a cushion and meditating for 30 minutes. It literally might be 3 diaphragmatic breaths between calls, practicing breath work, just sitting down before we open our computers and just doing a few rounds of breathing, but just always like calming our nervous systems because we just know we operate better, we show up better, we work better. And it's an easy way to care for ourselves and increase our performance and productivity.
I love that. I love that it's everything that you talked about was around taking care of yourself. It wasn't like these like, oh, we do a 5-minute stand up in the morning. It's like, yeah, you probably do things like that. But the things that came to mind first were taking care of yourself and carving out that space.
That's the era we're in.
Yes. And you can be in that.
That is prioritized.
The only way to have like a hard 80, right? Is like, is that way.
Exactly.
Well, I know you ladies are up to some really cool things. Like Tess, you do things outside of 1111 Talent. You work inside of companies with doing mindfulness and meditation as well. So where can people find you two on the internet? And do you have any cool stuff coming up that maybe people want to hear about?
Yes. So you can find us on Instagram. We're at 1111 Talent. Our website is 1111talent.com. And we are very active on LinkedIn as well. Those are our channels. And I think, you know, the best way to interact with us if you are hiring, we specialize in executive search, so director level and above, or if you know of an organization that's hiring, We bring a very fresh approach to recruitment. If you're looking for your next role, if you're wanting to make your move, that's another great reason to get in touch with us. And that's done very confidentially and handled confidentially.
Yeah, and you can actually go onto our website as a candidate and submit your resume, which will get you into our database and notify our team, like Tess said, confidentially.
Yes. Sign up for our newsletter.
Yes.
Yes. It's a great way. We'll just land in your inbox once a month with all of the fresh opportunities that we're working on.
Amazing. I will link all of that in the show notes. So your newsletter link, your website. And I think you also had a resource that you wanted to share with people around helping them find their purpose. So is there something that we can share with people who are like, thinking about maybe finding their next thing, whether it be starting their own business or going into a new role? How do you support people with that?
Yeah, so we have a few exercises, and so we'll send you one. But with the purpose one, it's really about getting at your strengths and your values. Once that is solidified, that really makes things a lot more clear and opens up a lot more doors for you, especially in the type of market that we're in and the type of companies we represent that are very, very purpose-led and are looking for that talent that are very connected to making a more meaningful impact beyond, what they do 9 to 5.
Okay, beautiful. We'll include all of that. Well, thank you both so much for coming on.
Thank you, Kristin. This was so fun to revisit all of this. I have the warm and fuzzy.
It's so good.
You made us appreciate each other so much. This was like a marriage counseling.
Yeah, this was really nice.
But in a good way.
Yeah, well, we got to go down memory lane, right? All the way from the beginning, from the napkin to where you are now.
Yes, from the napkin to the psychic to here we are.
Exactly. Yeah, no, it's so good. And thanks for sharing your story. Cause I think, this dynamic, as I said, is one that a lot of people are curious about, but don't really get to see on the inside. So thank you both for sharing your stories. And for those of you that were listening to the episode, thank you so much. If you loved the episode, just hit that follow or subscribe button and make sure to check out the resources in the show notes. So thanks again for joining us, and I'll see you in the next episode.